What would it be like if Disney was evil? Real life! Bendy and the Ink Machine Chapter 1 dropped on Game Jolt on February 10th, 2017. It was never meant to be more than a short little demo, inspired by a sketch by artist The Meatly of a world that resembled a cartoon. However, like many other games, it was discovered by the likes of Markiplier and Jacksepticeye and was blown into a viral sensation. This led to the creation of Chapters 2 through 5, as well as a remastering, a PS4, Xbox, Nintendo Switch, iOS, and Android release, as well as a sequel, which has been in development since 2018. The last proper update we got was 4 months ago, and all we really know about this game is it will be releasing by the end of the year. We hope? Seeing as we still know absolutely fuck all about it halfway through the year, I thought now would be as good a time as any to go back and look at all 5 chapters of Bendy and the Ink Machine. Before creating this video, I made it my mission to get my grubby little mitts on 4 different versions of Bendy. I'd just like to take a quick minute to explain the differences between the 4 versions. The first version is the 1.0 version, the first original version to be released on Game Jolt. It contains the first version of Chapter 1 that was made in 5 days and is the most primitive version of the game you can possibly get. The second version is version 1.2. It's the first version to contain Chapter 2, as well as the first remaster for Chapter 1. The third version is 1.3, containing the second remaster for Chapter 1, the first for Chapter 2, as well as the original Chapter 3 before the Chapter 4 remaster. The fourth and final version is the version available on Steam now, Bendy and the Ink Machine Complete Edition. It contains Chapters 1 through 5, as well as the final remaster of Chapter 1, 2, and the first and only remaster of Chapter 3. So choked on my own spit. Fuck it, we're keeping that. So without further ado, let's dive right into Bendy and the Ink Machine Chapter 1 version 1. I think the nicest thing I could say about version 1.1 is that it has good ideas. The atmosphere and overall visual style is fantastic, but to be honest, that's all I can say. It was developed in 5 days, so I can't be too harsh on it, but fuck me, it feels like it was made in 5 days. My computer is powerful enough to both run and record Ghost Runner at 1080p. It can play the entirety of Resident Evil 7 and 8 at max settings without dropping a single frame at 1080p. So why does this run like ass at max settings? Seriously, recording or not recording doesn't fix anything. Putting it at medium settings doesn't fix anything. My only real choice is to go to the lowest settings, which I didn't actually realize until I got to version 1.3, because yes, the terrible optimization lasts until then. Walking seems to be tied to the frame rate, which makes the game running like ass a huge problem. Sometimes when you take your finger off the W key, you don't stop moving. It's not such a problem in Chapter 1, it's just kind of annoying. But when you get to Chapter 3, it's kind of a problem when you're walking down the hallway and Bendy pops up at the end and you're just running straight at him. Speaking of Bendy, his model in this looks like absolute shit. He has no arms. That ties into a general problem in this version of Chapter 1. The polish. There is none. There's no sprinting, none of the doors open, and like I said, the game runs like ass. The ending also just kinda happens. There's no build-up. It's just, you get into a room, boom, it's the end. When I went back to record footage, after losing all the footage I had, including the Ghost Runner footage, so you're just gonna have to take my word for it that my computer can run it at 1080p. I wasn't able to find the wrench or the ink bottle despite looking literally everywhere. So I've cut some of Markiplier's video into this. The link will be in the description, but you could just Google Markiplier Bendy and the Ink Machine. Overall, I absolutely would not recommend checking this version out now, even out of curiosity. It was developed in 5 days, and again, it feels like that. Playing it, it absolutely has promise, and it being free was really the perfect price for it. Sure, it runs like piss. Sure, it's got very little polish, but hey, it's free. It's not like you're wasting your money, which is more than I could say about the next build. As I said before, the weird walking and terrible optimization lasts until 1.3, so yes, it's absolutely here, but this version does have quite a few new little rooms to add, which does wonders for immersion. It also has a sprint button. Bendy's model was closer to the final design, making the jump scare a huge upgrade, and curiously enough, in this version, I think I spotted Bendy during the ending. Not an image of him, but actually him, which is really neat. This is what 1.1 feels like it really wanted to be, and this isn't even the final version. Remember when I said Chapter 1 wasn't a waste of money? Well, version 1.2 absolutely is. Chapter 2 in version 1.2 just doesn't feel finished. With Chapter 1, you could forgive a lot of the lack of polish. It was developed in 5 days and was completely free. But they charged money for this version. This version with character animations that are rough as hell, character models that... I mean, just fucking look at that. Sure, it only costed like £1.39. That's still £1.39 more than I would spend on this. Some standout moments of weirdness include the Searchers, Sammy's sanctuary being a fucking hallway, and whatever's going on with Sammy's waist. Summing it up in a sentence, it feels the way Chapter 1 did in the 1.1 version, but without the excuse of it was developed in 5 days. Sure, it didn't have that much development time, just over a month, and they were also revamping Chapter 1 at the same time, but they should have just left it in the oven for another few weeks at least, just polish it up a bit. And unfortunately, this is going to start to become a trend. If Chapter 1 version 2 felt like what Chapter 1 was always supposed to be, this feels like what Chapter 1 was always supposed to be. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm gonna stick with it. For starters, there are a whole bunch of new rooms, once again, seriously helping with immersion. There's a brand new save system, which barely works, and it also runs a lot better. All in all, it's pretty good. Chapter 2 version 2 should have been the version that was released as version 1. This should have been the first time you had to pay for anything to do with Bendy and the ink machine. The save system has been implemented here, the ink actually looks like ink, the searches actually look like enemies, the chase scene with Bendy is actually slightly complicated, and Boris's animations actually look alright. It also adds a brand new room, the infirmary, and while yes, it just adds another step to what is essentially a fetch quest, it also helps with immersion. Yes, Sammy's model is still a little scuffed. Yes, his animations are still a little scuffed. Yes, his sanctuary is still a fucking corridor, which is why I'm saying this shouldn't have been version 2. This should have been the 1.0 version of Chapter 2. I actually quite enjoyed playing this version, where in the last one I was shocked they sold this for $6 on Steam. Also, side note, fuck Sammy's sanctuary. The thing you have to get in to do is so fucking dumb. Chapter 3 is one of the most unique chapters in Bendy and the Ink Machine. Whereas chapters 1 through 5 are largely just linear corridors with the occasional bit of backtracking, Chapter 3 has you going up and down all kinds of floors, doing, well, fetch quests. This game is just Fetch Quest Simulator, but it's still fun. Unfortunately, as is the trend, version 1.0 sucks. The triggers don't quite work, it still runs like piss, it still has that weird walking bug, and I never actually got to finish this chapter because Bendy just completely broke on me. I did have a clip, but I deleted it, like an idiot. This version of Chapter 3 is not worth paying for at all. And unlike Chapter 2, this had 6 months of development time, so you can't even say it didn't have much time, it's had the most so far. Yes, I understand that this chapter was much larger than any of the others, and yes, I understand that they were overhauling chapters 1 and 2 at the same time, but they should have hired more people to take this on, or just not spent so much time overhauling the chapters. Chapter 1 was fine as it is, it didn't desperately need an overhaul. In fact, by this time, Bendy and the Ink Machine had fully blown up. They were getting money from Patreon and sales of Chapter 2. Why couldn't they have outsourced the overhauling of chapters 1 and 2 to someone else, and then devoted all 6 months to developing Chapter 3? I don't understand you, you stupid puppet!